Oh, hello, everybody. Oh, hoy, hoy. We're live. We're here. We're in. I've got Landon and Maanyaa with us. I'm very excited. We are on our second one of Debate Hub.
Wow.
Yes!
And we've got a third one later on today, which is pinned in the live chat. So as soon as this one's over, you get a 15-minute break, and then we are or a half-hour break, and we are right back at it with the Free Thought Prophet. And they're going to be talking a little bit about the Atheist Alliance International and some of their internal workings. That's going to be really fun. But today we are talking about everything you need to know about volcanoes. I cannot imagine there's going to be anything that is not covered. So if you have questions, make sure you @ me. If you'd like to support, there is links down below. And I want to say special thanks to Bent Hovind, no relation, for making us our lovely little stinger, which you're going to see a couple of times today. Because Landon's got a whole ass presentation for us.
Okay.
me
Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude, from your friendly regional astronomer and planetary scientist. And I'm glad you're making this a habit there, Jess. People should get an idea that you actually have lots of good things going in your channel, and perhaps consider Patreon and all those other good things, clicking like and that kind of stuff.
It's a good habit.
Do the
to
YouTube
get into.
things.
YouTube
Yes.
things.
So we're gonna talk about volcanoes today. Various things. I'm gonna focus mostly on the Hawaiian volcano, but we'll talk about other volcanoes in particular. And I guess one of the things to consider on there. Am I screen sharing properly?
Yeah, you're screen sharing properly. When we're ready,
Okay.
are you ready to switch over?
Well, I can ready to switch over if you want. You can look at me later, and we can go back to live view when we're doing Q&A.
Landon, you are not ready for this. Are you sitting down? You're sitting down, right?
I am sitting down. Yes.
Okay, everybody, watch this.
Yay! Out dancing. Yes, this is beautiful.
That's so
Wow.
exciting.
This is awesome.
I've worked really hard on Debate Hub to make it like sound and look snazzy and like have good guests and good topics. Like I've been working hard in the background. You guys don't know.
It has that hub
Aw.
feeling to it.
Right? Right?
Exactly.
Yes. So it is interesting because you're doing a lot of stuff on Debate Hub that's debatably debates,
Right.
which is why it's Debate Hub, because it's you're debating the hub. So volcanoes. One of the things I want to emphasize is that volcanoes are a very common occurrance. To say to a planetary scientist, "Oh, there's an eruption going on," is like saying to a meteorologist, "It's raining somewhere." And it might say, "Well,
Right.
what do you mean? What do you mean?" Well, as of 2 days ago when I counted, there are 25 volcanoes on Earth right now that are in major eruption phases where lava is coming out and it's doing all kinds of good stuff. There's another 16 that are in minor eruptions with steam explosions and all kinds of stuff. They're erupting. So that's actually 41 volcanoes that are erupting on planet Earth right now. There are another 40 volcanoes that are rumbling, that you might say that they're earthquakes. They're being watched because the signs are such that an eruption is imminent. So I want to really emphasize again that Earth is a very wiggly, erupty, geologically active planet, and that means you have lots of planets. Now lots of volcanoes. Now this particular page, and
It's round, it might be spinning, it might be changing and moving.
So,
yes.
So that kind of tells me it's a healthy planet. It's a good core, and we still got it. The core is still working by the sounds of it.
Yes, I mean, in terms of, yes, but of course there's consequences for people on the surface when these volcanoes erupt. Yes. And sometimes they're not nice, but the thing that one can do when you monitor volcanoes well is you're less likely to be surprised at when they do things. And oftentimes you'll see, I'll show you a bunch of telemetry about Kilauea, which is Kilauea, Mauna Loa are two of my favorite volcanoes that are happen to be in Hawaii, and they are some of the best monitored volcanoes on the planet. There are a number of other volcanoes that are equally as frisky. Some are even more. Some are actually downright cranky. Cranky volcanoes blow up with extreme prejudice and can do really bad stuff. Whereas the nice thing about Hawaiian volcanoes is usually they're very gentle in what they do. So cranky volcanoes, such as when people say, "Hey, there's a volcano erupting in Iceland," I tend to stay away from Icelandic volcanoes because they tend to be on the cranky side. By cranky meaning that they're less predictable. They sometimes have violent outbursts as opposed to sort of the more gentle stuff. Whereas, for example, volcanoes in Hawaii are rather sedate in comparison. And in fact, you can go to visit Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and actually go and see for your own eyes this lava lake, which we'll get to in a moment. And that's actually a fairly special situation because oftentimes when you have a volcano, if it's not well monitored, then it's hard to predict what it's going to do, and you could be putting yourself into danger. So volcanoes have rhythms. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you're telling me, so how come the Icelandic volcanoes are more crankier ones? Why do they get that tag?
I think there's a couple of things that they get. One of them is that oftentimes the volcanoes are sitting under glaciers. And volcanoes and glaciers are a pretty bad mix. One of the things that can happen is that even if there's not lava reaching the surface or seeing explosion reaching the surface, the volcano can melt the glacier, create superheated water and steam, and that stuff can work its way out to the edge of a glacier and go bang. So we have what's called decade volcanoes, which are the 10 deadliest volcanoes on the planet, considering what they can do. Mount Rainier and Mount Baker are two such volcanoes in Washington State that are dangerous, and part of dangerous is that they have significant glaciers on the side. So when the magma works its way close to the surface, and maybe it doesn't even erupt, it just gets it warm, you start melting underneath the glacier, and that heated water starts working its way down the slope by gravity. And when it reaches near the edge of the glacier, all of a sudden the glacier can't hold it. It breaks out in what's called a lahar. And what comes out the bottom is a rush of superheated water, steam, mud, and so forth. And you get this avalanche coming down, even though the volcano hasn't, quote, erupted. It's just gotten warm. And so those examples of things there. We also saw, in Maanyaa, where you were in New Zealand, we had a really tragic situation of a volcano, which is considered to be, which is on, by the way, on one of the top 10 deadly volcanoes in the world. I don't know if you remember that or want to talk about that.
Yeah, I do remember that chat. And you shared the website, for the donations for that. It was,
But there was a volcano in New Zealand, where you are.
Oh yeah, there's another. Yeah. Oh yes, the White Island tragedy, if I'm not wrong.
And that volcano is considered one of the 10 deadliest as well, given its proximity to people. But the sad thing about that volcano is it's not well monitored. And so they didn't see the warning signs coming forward. Now, monitoring doesn't mean you always know what's going on. And you'll see with Kilauea that what we say, the dance of Madam Pele, the Hawaiians traditionally refer to Pele as Madam Pele, the goddess of fire.
Sometimes people, no matter how much information they have access to, don't know what's going on.
Yes, and so Madam Pele is very fond, as we say, of making fools of predictions. That being said, there's one thing about being able to exactly predict the weather, as in when will it start raining today, versus is it going to be raining or is it going to be bleeding hot? I mean, that predictions can get close, and if you have a volcano which is acting, which is showing signs of eruption, you can then take precautions. That's the sort of the central message. So what you see on the chart here, the red dots are volcanoes that are actively erupting under major eruption. So, for example, Maanyaa in Sicily is a one that is erupting nearly all the time. Stromboli is also a really nice thing called the Lighthouse of the Mediterranean. We're going to look over here at Kilauea for that, but you'll see all these red dots are volcanoes that are actively right now under major eruption. The orange dots are ones that are it's erupting, but it's minor. So you might have daily steam explosions coming up the top, stuff looking like this. And then the yellow ones are ones being watched because the patterns have changed and they're showing signs of erupting soon. Now, of those ones that get yellow, the average is maybe about half of them in a couple of years turn to orange or red. And depending on the volcano and its source, it might stay in eruptive phase for a long time, or it might go there for a couple of days and stop. It kind of depends on the volcano. But again, volcanoes are a very common occurrence. I know that some religious people like to, when there's an announcement of a volcano and something tragic happens to the volcano, they sort of say, hey, the end of the world is coming, repent, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's sort of like saying,
apocalypse. End of time.
Floods happen. Hurricanes happen. We can't predict it with absolute certainty, but we can get a general idea that something's coming.
Landon believes in Noah's Ark. Confirmed.
So that's the thing. And so you look at this website and you see the stuff you can get, and you click on each one of these things. Like you can go click on Etna and see right now what's happening. I know Etna is doing a pretty good job of having a nice fountain. Etna's been sending up lava things, and there it is. You can see in the Mediterranean there on Sicily where it's going. And so this website is a really good site for catching some of the other volcanoes that are going on planet Earth. All right, so volcanoes are common. Now, I've moved to another map, and this is centered on the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. But this larger map, I zoomed out. All these triangles are various volcanoes, and the volcanoes are the color there talks about their phase. So some of these phases these volcanoes are not monitored. We know they exist, but we just hope they don't erupt. And so there's lots of volcanoes, like for example, in here in the Pacific, where things can get quite.
That's so
quite
many.
messy.
You can't even see anything underneath all of the volcanoes.
Yes, Earth has lots and lots of volcanoes. So if you go down, down in these regions, you can see more volcanoes all along the Pacific Rim of Fire. Look at up in Alaska, right? Look at the number of volcanoes in Alaska. I mean, it's just that Aleutian Islands is just full of volcanoes and the green means they're kind of normal, right? They're not in erupting phase. Yellow means there actually are in advisory where they could be erupting, and watch is where they're doing something and they're under concern right now. And if you look around on the planet, you find there's lots of stuff. Now, some places like Australia is geologically very very mild, and so you won't see there very much in the way of volcanic activity. Australia is a fairly sedate, geologically speaking, set. They've had volcanoes in the past, but right now it's currently not in the thing. Whereas New Zealand has lots of volcanoes. There's lots of earthquakes, lots of wiggly stuff going on there. And so if you go down again. This site has lots of details you can look at with regards to it, but we're going to go and focus on Hawaii. Now, if you look in here, I've turned off the earthquake data, so forth. You'll see in the middle of the ocean, this chain of islands. It goes like this, as in going here, and then the chain takes a turn and goes this way. All these are volcanoes that erupted at one time. And the reason why is there's a hot spot sitting right around here on the Big Island, where for reasons we don't quite fully understand, there is material welling up in a mantle, and it's sort of like a hot spot in that area that tends to melt through the oceanic crust, which is thin, and creates volcanoes. And the ocean is moving. Ocean crust is effectively moving to the northeast. So the reason why, let's zoom in a little bit more on Hawaiian volcanoes. The reason why you see a big island here and smaller and smaller island going backwards, is that one time the hotspot was here, that the plate has shifted. Right now, the major hotspot is sitting right here, kind of in the area where Kilauea, there's Mauna Loa, there's Kilauea. There is a thing called Loihi, which is the next Hawaiian island. As the crust continues to move in this direction, that hotspot will effectively move this direction. These volcanoes will go from active to dormant to extinct, and they'll be, right now there's a new island rising up here, and eventually that island will become the big Mauna Loa, and it'll erode through.
Is it the plate structure that causing this this direction of the islands to form and the lava or the lava to flow in that way? Is that what it is?
Yeah, because the plate's moving over it. So you have underneath effectively a hotspot of stuff rising from deeper on Earth in the mantle, coming towards the surface, and the plate moves over it. So the hotspot keeps melting through the plate, creating volcanoes, and the plate keeps moving like a conveyor belt. So wow. That's why there is a volcano on Maui, Haleakala, which has erupted in the last couple 100 years. It's considered kind of it's not really active, it's more dormant. Whereas the active volcanoes are in this region in terms of Hualalai, Mauna Loa, Kilauea, and then the next one is Loihi. So eventually what's going to happen is as the plate moves like a conveyor belt in this direction, the hotspot will effectively move this direction. We'll create volcanoes which will rise to the surface and will end up breaching the surface and producing a new eruption. So that's why they talk about Loihi being the next big island, right? This eventually will break the surface of the ocean, probably somewhere in the next 15 to 50,000 years. It'll eventually become the big island. Meanwhile, all the rain that goes on it will cut the island in half. And so if you look back at Maui is actually a collection of islands. This used to be the big island in one big chunk, and the erosion has rolled it away. And you go back further into Oahu and so forth, it's even older, Kauai is even older, and then you get to see mounts of things that are not necessarily even above the ocean because they've been worn down. So that's kind of the general trend of what's going on here with these.
Such cool this is such a cool mapping tool. There's so much level detail just in the surrounding depiction of where there's island that is surface and also what is under, right?
Yes.
It's just so cool.
Yes. So what I did, I turned off the markers of where the instruments are, cameras and so forth, and I focused just on earthquakes. And this is earthquakes in if we look at the set here, we're focusing on earthquakes in the last 2 to 4 weeks. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of earthquakes in Hawaii. It's very, very
That's
wiggly.
a lot.
399. Holy guacamole.
Yeah. So if we go back to just the last 2 days, because that gets kind of busy, we see in here there's a bunch of earthquakes going on, right? And this has to do with various actions going on within set. There's been this region around here which has to do. These are by the way, the colors are showing. The colors show you the depth. So what we're showing here by color is how deep these earthquakes are. These are earthquakes that are around in their, I'm sorry, it's using silly units, but these units here are showing very deep earthquakes, and like 20 kilometers deep.
20
If you
kilometers.
go, yeah. So, but if we look up towards the summit of Kilauea, we see there's a lot of shallow earthquakes, particularly around where the eruption, which is right in here, is going on. But again, you see Mauna Loa, all kinds of earthquakes going on in this region, where it will show you again lots of data. So there's lots of data going on, lots of stuff going on within the volcano. They tend to be very actively in earthquakes. Size-wise, a lot of the earthquakes are fortunately for the local Hawaiians, relatively small. So let me put here.
Relatively small. Interesting.
In magnitude, right? So this is like, and so
Okay.
let me change the settings to show you things. I'm putting it in kilometers here, like that. I wonder why it's. Oh, this is showing in depth units. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these things that show you the magnitude, right? And the yellow ones here about magnitude 2. Here's a magnitude 3. Here's magnitude 4 stuff. So the larger, so a lot of these earthquakes are small enough that you'd have to be standing still just to notice a tiny little wiggle, right? You have to be paying real attention. It does have big earthquakes, right? There are big earthquakes that happen in Hawaii, and happen relatively frequently. If you look at the range of stuff over the last 2 to 4 weeks, they've had an earthquake that was in the magnitude 4 to 5 range, but most of them are like the 2 to 3 range where you can barely feel it. To 1 to 2, you'd have to be really perceptive. You might not even feel that stuff. So they tend to
It's like,
yeah. Go
it
ahead.
feels like you're like tracking vibrations, right?
Yes.
The smaller ones
Yes.
with like, so there are some vibrations that are like higher in frequency, you could say, or wavelength, and then there are some vibrations. Higher in wavelength, and then there are some vibrations that are lower in wavelength.
Sure.
Are there
And-
people who are maybe more or less sensitive to something like this? Whereas like some people would catch on to it really, really easily, and others would struggle to notice?
Part of it is where you are. I mean, if you're in a taller building, you might, and you're paying attention, you might notice the sway of the building. It also depends upon the earthquake. There's some earthquakes that are very long periods where there's a lot of energy going, but it happens over several hours. And so you're only going to notice that in an instrument. Whereas the ones that have the sharp crack, pops, those jolts, you can get there.
Well, it makes me think of like how people who lived in this area hundreds of years ago might have viewed something like this, where if there was somebody who was more sensitive to it than others, that person might be treated like they were crazy because nobody else noticed what was going on, or they just might have felt like they were crazy because they can't measure this, they don't know what it is, or even times before that, even a larger one where there would be all this activity and nobody would know what the hell any of it was.
Sure. Well, the Polynesians, when they arrived in the islands about 800, 900 years ago, they came from Polynesia, where there were lots of volcanoes before. So volcanoes were not a foreign concept to them, and they tend to. There's a lot of the Polynesian religions that tend to associate volcanoes with deities, and so areas such as the summit of Mauna Loa and Kilauea were considered sacred, and in fact, people went there with care, oftentimes with religious purposes, as opposed to just casually going up there as we do today. And even today, traditionally, there are Hawaiians that, out of tradition, will take mementos, things from their village, and there might be pieces of pottery. There might be a bone fragment of a relative. They might be something, wrap them in tea leaf and bring it to Kilauea as part of an offering. And you ask them, they say, yeah, we know it's a volcano, but this is what we do. And in fact, one guy,
it's a tradition that they enjoy, and it's part of their culture. And
Yeah.
if they're not using it to hurt anybody, no problem.
Yeah.
No.
And in fact,
Also,
it's just fun. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just
Okay.
coming from an experience. I attended a lecture from one of the local professors here in New Zealand. So their job is so they are Maori by descendant, and they know Maori and everything. So their job was to study areas, where natural disasters have been reported in the past. And what they would do is they would go and talk to locals, and they would explain how they have named certain phenomenon in their own history, or in their own lore. I think so, that would be a better word. I can't find another word for it for some reason. My brain got brr. So and they would talk about like how some natural phenomena, they would attribute it to gods, but they would know that they are cyclic, and then they would give those cyclic events names, and how important it was to talk to the locals about it, because in some way they do have monitored these events. They may not know where they're coming from, but they kind of know they happen on this cycle yearly, 5 years or 10 years or something like that, and it kind of helps to develop that local geographical area, especially if you have to build dams and all the reservoirs and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. You can learn a lot from locals and their lore.
Yeah, and when I work in Hawaii at the Volcano Observatory, one of the things I often do is local outreach. One of the things that's very successful about the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory is they have a very strong connection with the local community. One of the things we always say right off the bat is we're not going to tell you whether to stay or go. We are instead monitoring the volcanoes, providing the data, and the data you'll see is all public data that you can look at, and you can make a decision about yourself and your families. And that we also do that recognizing, again, being respectful of the culture. Now, I remember one guy said, I remember the guy that used to, oftentimes when you're there at the volcano setting up instruments, and they kind of get to know you're there as a visitor, they'll talk with you. And remember the one guy saying, I know it's a volcano, and all that stuff, but you guys have your tooth fairy and your Easter bunny. We have our Madam Pele. This is what we do. Now, one nice thing about that is they bring to her, because Hale Ma'u is a place we're going to look at in detail in eruption. It's called the House of Ferns, and it's sort of it's one of her houses that she's supposed to, when she's being nice, she's supposed to stay. But when she starts wandering around, that's when things start happening. They have a legend that her sister, the goddess of the sea, and her are in love with a volcano, a deity, a dude, and they were in love with the same person, and they have a rivalry. The two sisters, they don't like each other, and so Madam Pele will throw her children, hot rocks, lava, into the ocean, and the ocean, the goddess of the sea, will have these tsunamis or waves coming back up from the outside, and they go back and forth. They get kind of,
You keep the children. I don't want them. They're yours. You made them.
Yeah, and don't tell me, because he's my man, not your man. And so there's a lot of what local Hawaiians do in the hula dance, which is involving trying to get the two sisters to be calm and to just stay where they are, and everything's fine, and trying to mellow out and not get overexcited, right? It's sort of
trying to tell them, like, you do realize you're fighting over one guy, right?
Yeah.
Kind of sorry, my bad. No,
but it's sisters. I mean, I guess it's sisters. Those things that sisters do. So
they'd be arguing anyway. The man is just an excuse.
Yes. Yes. So we, and then, by the way, also when they bring these offerings there, the offering will bring things in tea leaves and set it there. They'll also bring other offerings, spirits as well. And one of the things in particular that they will do is they don't just sit there and it's not like you say, here's a lava pit and have a the so-called virgin sacrifice. That doesn't happen. That's I don't know. That's probably missionaries.
That's probably
came up with that excuse. But they do bring offerings there, and one of the things that the current tradition is that you sample the offerings to show Pele that it is good, right? And so Jack Daniels used to be one of the Pele's preferred spirits. Now it tends to be Seattle Cockworks whiskey, and they'll bring these really nice whiskeys along, and they'll sit down and they'll respectfully sample it, maybe drink about a third of the bottle, and if you're there, they'll offer you, and you seem to be a cool person, they'll offer you stuff again to show. Yes, and then they leave the bottle open with whether their offerings there, and then walk away. That's sort of their thing. Now they tend to do this in areas where the general public doesn't usually go, right? Because they don't want people messing with their stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that bottle, and Pele's like, "Where the hell is my whiskey? Seriously!" And then she gets angry, and then she starts throwing her children at the ocean. It's like, "You take them! I didn't get my whiskey today. Fuck you!" Right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of legends about Pele appears as a woman to a village, and she goes up to the village and asks for water. And the naughty village says, "Oh, get out of here, woman! You're just a freeloader. Go away." And she goes to sad. She goes to another village, and they say, "Oh yes, here's some water. And by the way, we have some food, some fresh baked fish. Would you sit down and have a meal with us and so forth, and treat her kindly?" And then of course the legend is that then there's an eruption and the lava goes and wipes out the bad village and goes around the good village. It's sort of the thing. These are things that children are taught, and it's part of the ethos of Hawaiian of the island Polynesian hospitality.
Right.
In particular, if they feed you, you are now under their protection. You are now.
That's what it's like at my house. I do the same thing. If I feed you, it means I like you. If you come to
you like me.
If you come and stay with me and I don't make or give you some kind of food, barring some kind of existential problem, it means I don't like you and go away.
Yes.
We have in Indian culture also we have this saying which we say Atiti Deva Bhava, which means guests are gods, basically.
Right.
So you don't mess with your guests, and you treat them nicely, whatever the circumstances.
Hey, that's kind of the philosophy of this whole debate hub thing. It's listen, you don't have to agree with people to treat them fairly.
Nice.
Yes. And it's a thing where. So that's a thing about the island hospitality. Now, there is, on the other hand, another aspect to that, which is that's what they do for visitors. Right. If you, on the other hand, choose to live there, then they say, okay, now some rules apply, right? Because the visitors might be forgiven for not understanding certain things,
right? And
they might tolerate visitor behavior. But if you choose to live there, you see the other side of Polynesia, which is you better shape up, you better do things right, and some of them are fairly serious about these behaviors, right? There are certain Hawaiians that are very into take the whole legend stuff very seriously, and if you are doing something they perceive, which is getting Pele angry, you are threatening their village and their family, and they will respond as if you were shooting them, or they'll respond very, very aggressively. Now, if you're a visitor, they'll try to say, "Hey, don't do this, blah blah blah." But if you choose to live there, you see the other side of the Polynesian.
It's like
strict.
yeah, it's like I'll let you learn and stuff, but there will be after time they will be like, you know this shit. You know you're not supposed to do this shit. Why would you do this shit?
Like working at a
Yes,
job.
Yeah,
yes.
it's like it's yeah, I think so. It will be with any culture, isn't it? They'll
Yes,
give you some
and
leeway if you're new, but after a while they will like, seriously?
but
Okay.
some people make the mistake of assuming that this
Ah, yeah.
hospitality means that they are part of the village. They are that, and that's the thing that is different. So when I go there, I recognize I am what they call a haole. I'm an off islander. And while a number of
Ah,
them
yeah,
have
I've heard that
known me to
term.
be very respectful, I never pretend that I am Hawaiian. I am Polynesian.
Yeah,
That is,
nah. That's the mistake. Like, if you're not born there, or if you have not been living there for at least like a decade or 20 years or something like that,
yeah.
maybe. But it's like, unless the people living there accept you and tell you maybe at one point, yeah, you're one of us, you're a Hawaiian, you kind of presume, I'm a guest here, I'm learning, but I'm gonna respect whatever you're telling me about this place. I'm
Uh,
not gonna break the rules, kind of thing.
I mean, yes, and this one elder would say, that people that come to live there said when they're born, they're an infant. They don't know better. They're taught by their elders. And by the time they become a teen or adult, they're expected to behave in a way that is commensurate with society. And so if you show up here, we're going to treat you like a baby. And maybe in 10 to 20 years, you will learn enough to become an accepted adult in the village. Now, that being
Yeah.
said,
Maybe.
a lot of things, a lot of stuff is going around is in that the Hawaiians who are willing to converse with you, and most of them are. I mentioned there are some who have gone full native, who you'll never hear them speak a word of English if they even know that. They don't even recognize the United States. They're just full native stuff. That's sort of one fringe group. There's another extreme on the other side there, but most of the thing in the middle are people that are very knowledgeable about their area, very curious, very interested, and they ask really great questions. So you have to be, when you're going into these areas where you want to install an instrument or you work talking to a village, you have to be on your game. You have to know your stuff. You have to, and because they can ask them some very sophisticated questions, and they're looking at the same data. And one of the things in particular you'll find is that when a volcano like Kilauea starts pouring out lava there, you'll find that the telemetry, the data you're going to see, has told us this stuff was coming, and the natives have left. They've already left. It's only the vacation timeshare silly people that stick around in front of stuff.
No.
So they're again. I don't want to paint them as being primitive, superstitious people. They're actually quite knowledgeable about this data and will show you stuff. Sometimes we'll say, "Hey, did you notice this blah 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 happening?"
I am such a big fan of not imposing on people, but giving them the information. It's like, listen, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to give you the information you need so that way you can interpret the data in a way that is conducive with reality, and then you're independent. You're your own person. You can make whatever decision you want. If you need these resources, we're going to make these resources available. So if you need to get off the island, this exists. However, it's entirely up to you about what you want to do with your life.
Yeah. And it's interesting, by the way, that those people who've had property where the lava has wiped it out, but they've left well ahead of time. In the culture, those people are considered quite favored. That is, they were a good enough person to do the right number of things that the Vulcan god spared them, and in fact, they're seen as being actually quite high, having a high honor in their society. And people will say to somebody, "Hey, I know your house been wiped out. Please come and live in our back lot," because there can be good luck. They've shown by their not being wiped out of the volcano that they're good people, and that's the kind of people you want to run around in your village.
you're recognized by the company you keep. Eh?
Yes, yes. So it is interesting. Now, if you look at this map again, and we'll flip over to talking more about. We'll get to some lava eventually. Don't worry. I'm showing you right now. You'll see that the legend here. If you see this legend showing of the colors or the depths in here, and you see that that there's a lot of interest about this earthquake score. These are very deep earthquakes. In the 20-kilometer range, deep there, but there's a lot of them. And so a lot of people have questions about this, and we put a lot of monitoring here to understand what's going on. These are stuff where the magma is moving up up and closer to the surface, and you're seeing the stresses of that magma motion, even though it's erupting over here at Kilauea. So they actually asked a lot of questions about some of these earthquakes offshore, so forth, again to try to understand what's happening. Now, the Big Island of Hawaii consists of 5 volcanoes, right? And here's a map showing you the general area of where it is. We're going to focus on Kilauea, but Mauna Loa is kind of the big the Big Island. It is most of the Big Island. In fact, you see in terms of size, it's enormous. It's the largest volcano that's above the that's above the ocean in the world, and this is massive. I mean, if you look at the set, you'll see that the volcano doesn't stop at the edge of the ocean. It goes down quite deep into the ocean. This volcano actually extends all the way around into this region. It's a fairly large volcano, and if you look at the area, I mean, the land area is around over 5,000 square kilometers. It's about 120 kilometers by 75 kilometers in size. But the height of this mountain is enormous, right? Realize the fact that the even though it's around the altitude is around about 4,000 meters, there's another 5,000 meters or more that goes into the ocean, right? So from the bottom of the ocean, where the base of the mountain is up at the top, is actually over 9,000 meters, taller than Everest is above the sea level. And the other thing you will realize is that the mass of this mountain is so great that it's pushed the Earth's crust down, and it's pushed itself into the crust. And there's another there's another 8 kilometers where it has sunk itself into the crust because of the sheer weight of this thing. So when you
what
look
kind of effect does that have on like the local sea life? I assume like the sea life in that area is adapted to it by now, but is there like a big change between like sort of like
it's a very rich life
line almost?
Because volcanic soil, volcanic things are full of all kinds of minerals, and so the sea life around it is abundant and rich. Now, where lava is pouring, when lava pours into the sea and the sea is boiling, it's kind of bad for those fish that get too near. But in general, these islands are extremely rich in minerals and in things, so that the plant animal life there is extraordinary. But realize again.
Do you get the phenomena of like the volcanic sharks? I heard that some not around this one, but there are other volcanoes around which we find like sharks who have adapted to those temperatures and stuff, water temperatures.
Well, yes, if there's a 35-year period where Kilauea is pouring lava into the sea, and the sea kind of boils at that spot, and there are fish and creatures that are a little bit too curious or a little bit too interested in food sources, and they get to be sort of poached, if you will. And so predators come around and basically eat these poached fish. And so there's a whole kind of shark thing around there where the sharks tend to be smart enough not to get too near the eruption, but near enough that they catch the things that
they get a good poached meal for them.
Absolutely.
Nice.
But again, back to say with the Mauna Loa, final things from the base, so it's the bedrock base of Mauna Loa to its surface is 17 kilometers or 56,000 feet. And
Oh, wow.
the mass of it is, the mass of this mountain is enormous. The other thing to consider is that the Mauna Loa has been erupting for only 700,000 years. This island built itself in a course of less than 1 million years, probably.
Wow.
And this is what it is why when Mauna Loa erupts, the amount of lava that comes out is just staggering. It is a really sight to behold. It's one of those things, hasn't happened since '84, but I'm looking forward to the next time, because when it erupts, it really puts out stuff. That's how you get an island building that fast.
That's one of those times where you don't, like, the sun gets like dusted across the whole world is like, God?
What?
Yes. I mean, Kilauea is on the other hand is a relatively newcomer. It's a side volcano here. For that, it's a separate volcano in some sense. Although we suspect that the plumbing of Mauna Loa and Kilauea are joined much deeper. That the volcano is actually only about 280,000 years old. The oldest. It probably started maybe around 300,000 to 400,000 years ago as a sub-volcanic, sub-ocean volcano, and broke the surface, and it's relatively new. So eventually Kilauea will become the new Mauna Loa, and here's Kilauea there, and then Lo'i will become the new Kilauea, and then erosion will probably cut these two. Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa will be cut into two separate islands.
Does that mean like the location of the major explosion will move?
Yes, and so the hotspot is moving this direction. Again, if you look back at the island chain, you'll see that this island chain, as you go backwards in time, where the hotspot was, you're seeing other volcanoes that erupted, and so you get into the several million years ago the hotspot was here, and now it's here. And the hotspot's slowly moving. So in our lifetime, it's basically in this general region. And again, hotspot is not one spot, right? There's not one giant spot.
It's a hotspot that covers this region, this area. Now, out of curiosity, just because I know this is your presentation, I want to know: do you want to get questions and then next portion of
sure yes
do you want to just wait to the end? Okay, so I'm gonna switch us over so you won't be screen sharing, if that works for you.
That's fine.
Alrighty.
Ooh,
I love this thing so much. I'm so happy.
Yeah, this is perfect.
All right.
So we got questions on general volcanoes before going into what is Kilauea doing right now.
Vulnerable said, I hope he answers why Indonesia has such explosive eruptions.
Indonesia's on the Pacific Rim of Fire. It is places where plate tectonics, plates are there are plate boundaries. And so when you look at here's like Papua New Guinea, and here's earthquakes, right? Here's earthquakes in there. It is geologically active because in fact you see this is a Pacific plate versus the Australian plate and Asian plate. Is all these dots you see, all these earthquakes, and this is over the last 2 weeks are where the boundaries get together. So different than Hawaii, which is a hotspot. There's a hotspot here. This is a case where plate boundaries are either breaking apart or smashing together and causing earthquakes and volcanic activity. And you can see, New Zealand is right there as part of this crack stuff. And so New Zealand has lots of wiggles. It's a very wiggly place. And lots of earthquakes. Again, this is part of the boundary of stuff. And if you were to continue going down, here's New Zealand and here's Tonga and that region there, that big volcano that occurred. This is all part of those plate tectonic boundaries. If you keep going down, you'll find you'll go into Antarctica, and you'll go across Antarctica up to Transantarctic Mountains and go up through the Andes again. All this region around here, if I let the dots there, you'll see essentially just lots and lots of earthquakes, again, at these plate tectonic boundaries. And Indonesia has lots of plate tectonic boundaries there. Go back to the spot. Indonesia, Philippines, Papua New Guinea,
So
Tonga,
just like sitting
all
on
those
the
regions.
edge of two plates.
Yeah.
Another question we got from Smitty that says, will you address the climate change denial talking points that volcanoes are causing global warming rather than humans?
Well,
Maanya's like, no. Why would we talk about that?
What we see from volcanic activity in general is that when you have a major volcanic eruption, such as the one in Tonga, such as the one that happened in the Philippines, I mean, I talk about things that are high on the index, not something like Kilauea, which is relatively mild. There's lots of material that gets put in the atmosphere. You get a temporary cooling effect for a year to a couple of years afterwards, and then it resumes. So it's sort of like saying, you know, the atmosphere is putting on a coat, in this case a freezing coat that reduces temperature temporarily before coming back. We saw in 1991 that global temperatures dropped temporarily after the Mount Pinatubo major eruption occurred, where a lot of material got into the atmosphere. We saw that with Krakatoa or the Tonga eruption in the 1800s, and we're seeing may see some effect of the most recent eruption that happened in Polynesia, although it's not clear how much effect it has, because it depends upon the nature of what it puts up in the atmosphere. So generally, right, volcanoes have a temporary effect as the material that they put in the atmosphere kind of settles out, but they're not a long-term change. And again, those effects are only for a couple of years.
I also imagine that by the time that rolls around, the amount of plant life and coral life and algae that is in the sea within that area of where that volcano erupted would more than undo whatever change the volcano itself had made.
True. The final thing is, you look at something just as simple as the amount of coal plant fires and coal mining fires in a place like China. That amount of gases put in the atmosphere is orders of magnitude more than what Kilauea puts out. Even though Kilauea puts out a reasonable amount, and we'll look at its current volume of sulfur dioxide spreading on the atmosphere. It is a rounding error when you look at some of the larger things that are changing the atmosphere, making the atmosphere more energetic. And when the atmosphere is more energetic, you get hotter summers, colder winters, longer droughts, greater monsoons, more energetic, more extreme stuff when the atmosphere becomes more energetic.
Volcanoes, so does that mean, like, when you say energetic, do you mean that there's like a lot of activity?
And extremes. So you get more typhoons and hurricanes. You get ones that are stronger, ones that are greater range of the season, more extreme behavior as you build up energy to the atmosphere. So and volcanoes are not contributing that much to the energy of the atmosphere.
So the volcanoes are not the extreme. They're not the extreme. They're just the localized effect, isn't it?
Yeah. They can have a temporary effect when you have a big eruption, but that tends to be for a year or two, and then it kind of
and then, like Shesh said, the local flora and fauna kind of takes over, and it settles down. So it kind of feels like people who are making these statements, they don't know how volcanoes work, and they have not studied at all, like, what actually contributes to the rising global temperatures, or what are the factors the people who are claiming, who have studied this, and are claiming that another degree rise in the average temperature of the globe might result in extremes. They have not studied the data or the sources of the data, where this data came from. So
it sounds to me like it's the same kind of error that you see with like flat earthers, where it's a matter of scaling. Like it's a lack of understanding the scale. So when you say 1 degree, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you scale it to the size of the planet, it ends up being a really big deal. Or even if you were to scale it to one person, if your internal body temperature changes by 1 degree, you're in a lot of trouble. So it's one of those things where it just doesn't, it's a lack of understanding, because the reason why it's a really big deal if your body temperature internal body temperature changes by 1 degree is because it affects all the little tiny little dudes that make up your entire body. Yeah. And so that's what happens when you have if you take the Earth as an equivalent of a singular person's body and say, hey, listen, we're the tiny little organisms. So if the whole body temperature changes by 1 degree, we're fuckled. That's I find that there's just a lack of understanding when it comes to scale. Volcano seems really, really big. One person driving car doesn't seem as large.
And math is also like kind of a weak spot for such people, because they say, oh, we have these cycles where we have like cold years and then hotter years and stuff. That's fine, but the average is still going up. It's still trickling up. The average of all those cycles, it's still going up. So that's why there's this like, listen, we can't afford this average to go up. We can't. Because we can't manage it anymore. Then we are managing it now and still struggling, but we won't be able to manage it. So that's why there's this warning that's going out. But people are so hyper focused on little tiniest details, and like Shesh said, not looking at the scale of things. It's like a recent interview that happened. If you go on Twitter, Mehdi Hassan, he's a reporter for Al Jazeera. And he showed this clip, I think so it was Good Morning Show in UK or something, where they did this weird interview where someone was talking about carbon emissions and stuff, and was talking about we need to make changes to lifestyles and stuff. And people were like, but you're wearing this cotton shirt that came from these carbon emissions. So what are you doing? And she's like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Yeah.
So it's like
we live in a society.
So and again, I didn't make this about climate stuff, but from a planetary scientist, we prefer not to use words like global warming because they're misleading.
Yeah.
Making the atmosphere more energetic creates more extremes. Some of those extremes come in the form of trapping heat. So you get overall average temperatures going up, and it might not seem much, but again, those overall average changes can be. But understand that when you have a more energetic atmosphere, you'll get colder colds. So, for example, we had recently we broke the all-time world record high authentic high temperature in Death Valley. It reached 57.2 Celsius. Which is 135 Fahrenheit, and that's a new all-time world record.
For the Americans in there in the live chat.
In a previous season, we had a record low temperature recorded in Antarctica of minus 93 Celsius. That's minus 135 Fahrenheit. And so you say, well, how can it happen? How can you have? And some people say, well, what about global warming? Because look, we had a record low temperature in Antarctica, and by 93 Celsius is effing cold.
Whoa. Yes,
that is
what I would call an extreme.
Yeah, but this is back to saying what's happening is that when the atmosphere is more energetic, you'll get these more extremes. You'll get a drought that will last longer and deeper and harder. You'll get more typhoons with more intensity over a longer period of time. You'll get more tornadoes and tornado areas of greater intensity. We had a extreme case right now, unheard of a fairly significant tornado event occurred up in all places in Canada, up in Ottawa area where it was like people said, WTF?
What? What is this?
Where the hell did you come from? Did you lose your mind?
And I hope you didn't. I hope Cheshire weren't affected in that region. But I know that it was a fairly. But these are examples of stuff when the atmosphere gets more energetic.
I live in a pretty stable area.
Why is the atmosphere getting more energetic? One of the key methods is that that energy from the sun is reaching the surface and not being allowed to radiate out into space as effectively, because greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and so forth reflect infrared. So instead of at night the Earth's surface cooling, it gets absorbed in the atmosphere, and you retain the energy in the atmosphere.
Come on,
which
guys,
then does extreme things.
We knew this 30 years ago, plus 50 years ago in some cases. Come on. Now, I have one last question from Letty.
I have a question.
Yes.
All right. Maanyaa, you want to go first, or you want to make Letty's about to change the topic just slightly, so do you want to go first, Maanyaa?
Okay, so I'm just gonna talk about something. I don't know. I think so. Landon must have heard about it. The HARP program. Do you know about that? The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been rumors that this program is causing problems in the atmosphere. Can you talk about a little bit, shed a light on it, how it's not given the scale and everything and all that shit?
It's probably, again, it's not. Yeah, this is not This
it's
is
a conspiracy
like,
theory, isn't it?
This is like somebody peeing in the ocean and saying that's the cause of sea level rise, right? It's there. I do want to put out on a graph, if you have a moment, to flip over to screen sharing again. This has to do with Mauna Loa and our last thing.
Shash, come back.
Shash. I can wait. We can wait.
I can ask Letiluma's question from the live chat if you want. So,
okay, please go ahead.
So they're saying, Landon, how do geysers relate? Sorry, and can a geyser transform into its own volcano, or are they usually fed energy by a caldera or something else? For example, Yellowstone.
Geysers are typically where water works its way down deeper in the rocks and reaches near magma, right? Underground hot rocks to liquid rocks. It gets near there, boils, and comes back up. So geysers are a presence where you have a lot of surface water percolating down, hitting hot rocks that are heated by volcanic activity, usually.
I love how you guys immediately just jumped to literally the next thing I was about to ask about.
So yes, geysers.
I read the
geysers are an effect, and Yellowstone Basin, for example, is a case where the Yellowstone River is able to supply lots of surface water into a region where there's volcanic activity. But again, if I might say, don't be sort of fooled by the so-called History Channel's hype week about volcanoes and supervolcano stuff. Yellowstone is not going to erupt anytime soon. It's not even close to erupting.
They're an entertainment center, not an education center.
Yeah. That being said, geysers are places where there's geothermal activity, where you have hot rocks, and so New Zealand is full of wonderful geysers.
Almost like we talked about this yesterday. So if you're interested in the problems that media tends to have with, overhyping things or like misleading people, you should go watch our video from yesterday that also featured Landon. Plug. Yeah. Go check that out. All right, Landon.
All right.
I want to continue.
Let's go back. Sure.
Okay, they can still hear you. You can talk over it. It's fine.
All right. So in this particular case now, I just mentioned again, last thing is these are all the dots of the earthquakes along, of Indonesia, blah, blah, blah. And moving into Mauna Loa, one of the things that happens on Mauna Loa near the surface, near the summit, is there's an air quality monitoring center that has been taking air samples since before 1960, about 1959. And this is considered one of the gold standards for understanding the atmosphere. You've got an island out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, relatively free from a major city or the sources, and it basically samples atmosphere. The other thing that they do is they capture chunks of atmosphere into sealed containers that we can go back and analyze. So we can go back and sniff the air of 1960, 1970, so forth. And to do both checks on stuff and look for new materials. And so what you're seeing on right now is a graph. This graph here talks about the parts per million of CO2. And we see in the case of Mauna Loa that this rise, steady rise has been going on from 320 parts per million up now it's close to 420 parts per million right now. Now, this other graph, you show the red line wiggles back and forth. You can see little variations because there's seasons in the atmosphere. But average-wise, the trend, even though it wiggles, the average-wise is there. Now, sometimes what people will do is they'll take a peak of one and a trough of the other, draw a trend line and say, see, it's going down. That's when people start misusing the data. But this data here is an example of, this is fact. The fact is that the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere has been rising at an unprecedented rate. We've had higher concentrations in the past.
Was there a specific reason why these measurements were started? Like what led to this beginning of doing the measurements around the volcanic activity? Like
people wanted to
CO2.
know what the atmosphere consists of, and they were trying to what's air, and doing so in a place around near a city, you get contaminated by what the city's doing. So we wanted to know what's the atmosphere, and so going out in the middle of the ocean can be problematic because near the ocean level, you get all kinds of sea salts and other things there. Whereas having a really tall, one of the largest, most massive mountains on the planet, sticking out in the middle of the ocean, is a really good place to sample the air free of lots of other influences. Now, yes. And so that's where it got started, and they were very good at not only sampling but saving containers, saving these air samples that people could go back and reanalyze and calibrate and verify this. So this is one of the cases where the Mauna Loa CO2 record is the data is indisputable and it's verified multiple times. When you look at ice cores going back in, let's say, drilling into Greenland or drilling into Antarctica, we do find periods of time where the Earth has had higher CO2 concentrations. The problem, of course, is those had extreme things relating to ice ages and other sort of stuff. So what's different is that when you look at the trend of CO2 since the industrial era, you find a really sharp spike, not a gradual up and down stuff with geologic processes, but a really sharp spike. And this is just one of the data. So Mauna Loa features in the whole area about monitoring what the climate's doing. Let's go move on. I'm going to focus on Kilauea and the summit. So here's a map.
There was a reason why we focused on Hawaii, by the way.
Yeah. And we do a lot of work on I do a lot of work with this area. This is the summit of Kilauea, and in this particular pit here, the colors pit is called Haole Ma'u, which is anything for the House of Ferns. It's the place. It's one of the places where when Madam Pele is behaving well, she sort of stays there. She sometimes, as they say, goes up to the summit of Mauna Loa. Sometimes she kind of goes back and forth. She has multiple homes, but this is the area at the top. Now, this is also
she's got real estate.
Yes, of the national park. And so you see, here's this part here. I don't know if the thing. So this sort of studying area here shows you the south end of the Big Island, and this is where the Volcano National Park is located. And this is an area here. It's a summit of Kilauea where if you fly into Hilo, Hawaii, it's about a 40, and you get a rental car there at the Hilo airport. It's about a 40-minute drive up to the park entrance right here. They have a nice visitor center here. There is a place called Volcano House, a lodge you can stay. There are some overlooks where you can go to these spots and actually look down into the active lava pit. And this is, again, one of those places where, because of the nature of the Hawaiian volcanoes being mostly basalt. They're low sulfur. They're not the thick, pasty lavas you get in the continent. They also are very high temperature, so they're free flowing. They don't get congealed and pasty and so forth. They're fairly free flowing, high temperature stuff, and so they tend to be gentle. And so your ability to get within a kilometer of an active vent is something quite unusual on planet Earth. Cranky volcanoes, you don't want to be this close unless you really know what you're doing and you really have a good thing. Now, yes, I was to the southwest of Mount St. Helens when it erupted on purpose at a spot that was protected to measure what was happening. But those are really special cases. This is special in that you, as a general visitor, can go and visit the national park. It's like a $20 entrance fee that gives you coming going for a full week. You can stay. There's hotels in Volcano Village you can stay at outside the park. Easy drive. It is also nice to come there at night and look down into the lava pit at night. I'll explain more why you want to often see it at night, but it is a place to go and see. I would really encourage you to go and see. If you want to see actually lava and erupting stuff, it's a very, very cool spot.
Couple of things. YouTube Surgeon General just shouts out that he loves you, and then also shouts out that I love it when Landon is on. I always learn something new and fun.
Yay!
Thank you.
Nice. Yay,
Now,
learning. Wait, yay,
So do you see this big giant pit, this drop down area, this what they call the drop down block, this spot that fell down? Well, so Kilauea had an eruption that started in January 4th, 1984, and lasted for 35 and a half years. And it put out lots of lava. So if you look at this inset over here, this little spot, you see here's the summit of Kilauea, and you see these two dark lines. These are called the spines of the shield volcano. There's a fault lines where magma tends to move down and come out and spill out. One of the places was a place called Pu'u'o'o, where for 35 years the magma would come up here to the central vent, come up, but then go into basically a pipe, if you will, a crack, travel down here, and then spill out to the side. And so it spent a lot of time putting lava out here. And you could go there when the Pu'u'o'o eruption was going. You can come back 6 months, look at the thing, and you'll see the coastline changes. Right? It put out over 4.5 cubic kilometers of lava in that 35 and a half years. That's over a cubic mile of lava.
Is that about a mega pint of lava?
that's several mega pints probably. It
is
definitely
as much lava as Johnny Depp is able to drink.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Allegedly. Now, towards the end of that eruption, in 2018, there was a big shift, bunch of fairly big earthquakes, and the magma surged down to the very end of the island, and came out here, and over a period of about 4 months, nearly a cubic kilometer or over a cubic kilometer of lava came out and poured out in this spot. You might have seen pictures of homes being destroyed and all this sort of destruction happening. Again, the native Hawaiians are paying attention to telemetry, had long since moved out. It was a bunch of vacation homes that were, well, I should say some Hawaiians say they're kind of the source of those haoles that come in, have a big drunken fest and litter the place and trash the place, and the fact that Pele wiped them out. There's some of the Hawaiians that say, yeah, good on you, Madam, for that sort of thing.
How dare you be disrespectful?
You don't drink. You don't drink in the presence of Madam. Only she drinks.
There was a hotel that they put down here next to the park edge, right at this spot, that the volcano wiped out. And a little bit of hubris because of again, it was places where Hawaiians say this is natural place, it's sacred, it's special. Don't pollute it with a bunch of craft. So, but that being said, it depends upon who you talk to, whether it's a tragedy or was a house cleaning. Nevertheless, in a very short amount of time, a cubic kilometer of could be both, of magma, which is sitting at a chamber under this spot here in the thing, moved down and spilled out at the edge. And then it stopped. And that rapid motion caused the top of the summit to weaken and fall in. So when we look at this graph here on the side, this is showing the side of this. Here again is Heli Maltmo, and these are in distance here's like 1 kilometer from here to here, giving in size of this stuff. This was, a big drop. This black line here shows you at the end of the eruption, when you had all these earthquakes and the thing collapsed, it ended up creating a big hole there. It used to be. It's
like someone plugged a pipe from another section and then just drained all the lava. Is that what it is like?
Yes, and so there was a chamber under here where, see this orange line on top? That's what it used to be. That's what the surface used to look like. And then it turned into this black line here. And again, you look at this width. This is almost 2.5 kilometers wide, and over 1 kilometer, almost. Well, let's see. It's in elevation. It's around 650 meters deep. I was there when the collapse began. We were monitoring the lava lake at we didn't know then was the end of the eruption, and we saw the lava lake drain. The lava lake dropped, and the lava lake dropped over 500 meters. Right? It's like the lava lake was up near the top of this orange spot, and a small hole, and that thing drained in a matter of about less than an hour, and
what?
A hole that around 500 meters deep, and when the thing started dropping, that's when I said, I'm getting the hell out of here, because again,
it's gonna appear somewhere.
What you do is you understand the volcano's current rhythm, and when the rhythm changes, there's a change in the beat of the music, a change in the telemetry. You need to step back, because you might think you know what's going on, but you don't want to be surprised. And in that particular case, we had a period of about 6 weeks where we had typically a magnitude 5 earthquake about every 20 hours as this surface started dropping, because all that magma that came out the end of the island created a big giant cavity here, and the roof was collapsing.
Yeah.
And so the roof actually collapsed, and at the end, and the eruption stopped at the end of 2018. That's
so crazy.
And then what things started happening is they started having a little lake, a water lake, or actual water lake. Because guess what, in Hawaii, it rains a lot. Hawaii has a spot of some of the highest rainfalls in the world, and they're crazy rainfalls I've experienced at the Kilauea Summit. I've been there when within a period of 2 hours we had 2/3 of a meter of rain fall in 2 hours, and it's an enormous amount. Sometimes the rain just comes down, so lots of water, right?
It's like bucket and pour it. I was like, here, take it.
Giant pit of rock. Naturally, you're going to get a lake started forming. So that's not unexpected. The thing that was surprising was that this lake started filling up here, and then the lake started getting hot, and it started acting like the thermal hot spring. But the person asking about geysers, we started seeing that not just a nice lake, but the lake became quite hot. It had because of minerals in it. It was near boiling, but we were like, oh, this is, and again, water and lava, water and magma tend to be explosive combinations. So people kind of stayed away from it, not knowing what's going to happen. And I remember I was online actually chatting with Red Eye and watching the telemetry stuff. It wasn't erupting. And all of a sudden I said to Red Eye, I think I need to go. I'm seeing a really, really bright spot, right? I looked at the camera and it looked like daylight, but it said it's nighttime there. Oh dear, it's actually erupting. And in fact, I had to go and wake up the guy who was supposed to be monitoring it.
Oh dear, Landon says. Let us
and we
see
watched
some shit.
And we watched there was a big flood of lava that came there. I'll show you some pictures of that stuff in a bit that occurred, and it went for a couple of months. It stopped, and then it resumed again in December. And so you'll see again, the orange was the original surface. Then the black was when then the 35-year eruption ended and it collapsed. You had a lake. That lake was boiled away in a matter of about 20 minutes when the lava started pouring into it. And so it filled it up. It filled it up to this level here. And then right now it's currently at this level, right? So in a short period of about a year and a half, it's filled up a good chunk of this pit. Again, what's underneath here is a central vent of Kilauea, which is sitting on top of or near the hot spot. So it gets fed lots of material by the mantle, and it comes up and erupts here. This is a nice spot because of the lava sloshing around here inside the caldera. It doesn't bother anyone, and you can go over here to this overlook. Again, I highly encourage you, get on a flight, get a hotel at Volcano Village or get a room at Volcano House, fly to Hilo, 40-minute drive, pay your park entrance fee, go up there and look.
I gotta buy myself a decent camera, or at least a phone with a better camera, and do some of these trips that Landon keeps telling me to do, because all the time Landon's like, go here, check this out, go here, check this out. You know what, Landon, you need to write a little mini journal that's go here, look for this thing, here's the list of things on one page.
Yeah, that would be great, man.
Yeah.
Do it. Publish it on Amazon.
So I do stuff when I'm at the Volcano Observatory taking images and putting up stuff, I put it onto the Discord channel.
Put a difficulty star level where it's hey, listen, this one's really easy to get to. Our Antarctica is this is hard mode. yeah,
it says hard mode, but this is very easy to do. And the reason why you want to stay overnight is that, particularly in the evening at night, the lava when it's erupting and flowing, it's actually quite there. Now, I will point out here, right now we're going to look at some pictures of lava. This red spot is where sort of some of the active flow is inside this thing. This colored area is a lava lake. It is lava that is fairly deep. I mean, if you look at the spot, 100, 200, 300, it's almost 350 meters deep, this lava lake right now. So that's almost 1,000 feet deep. This lake of lava. Lava, when it comes contact with the air is very cold, lava is hot. It freezes. So when you look at this lava lake, what you'll see is a crust. And you'll only see red stuff when the crust is breaking open, when there's stuff moving fast. But it very quickly hardens and freezes. So only time you see those really great pictures of lava flowing is when it's shooting up into the air very fast. It doesn't have time to cool yet at the beginning of eruptions. Most of the time, it looks fairly sedate. So the red spot here shows you current lava flows on the surface. But understand, all under here, if you dig down, you get to lava. There's another thing happening. See these yellow spots? These yellow spots are islands. Now,
Red Eye mentioned something about that earlier in the side.
This island. In fact, this particular island here is known as Gilligan's Island. Because, why not? And this is again, if you look at the size of this stuff, this is an island that is over about 120 meters across, right? By about 50 meters. So that's what, that's 400 feet by about 120 feet, somewhere on there. This is an island of rock floating in a lake of lava. In fact, these are several islands. There are other pieces there, and it's rather unusual stuff. It kind of, as the currents move around, it kind of moves around there. It's because this lake is getting harder and harder to keep liquid, right? The flow is here. It's hard to keep this thing really warm. It's now the lake is kind of becoming more like pudding, and so the raft, this raft is not really moving that much.
For those of you
this is
who do D&D stuff, this is a map for your D&D encounter that you should consider using, and throw some red slots in there, maybe throw some like fire elementals in there, and the moving island is actually a fire version of a dragon turtle, good shit.
Yeah, it's so this is the spot. When we think what happened is that this island was probably a chunk of stuff on the slope that slid from here, slid down into the pit as the lake was filling, and it acted like a raft where rock is a really good insulator. So you had some chunk of the side that slid down into the lava, and the contact of the cold rock and lava hardened it and freezed it, resulting you get this rock raft, right, with kind of this rock pumice stuff on the top, and people thought, oh, this thing's going to sink, it's going to melt. No, it's been sticking around there. It's been there. It formed soon after the 2019 eruption started, and it's been there ever since.
And what's the scale? Cool. What's the scale of this map, like that we're looking at right now?
So you see down here, this is 100 meters. So this thing is about 100 meters across by maybe 200 meters wide, 250 meters
so
long.
It's massive. It's massive.
Yeah. I mean, this is over a kilometer wide here, right? Remember, you look at this scale here. The lava lake is over a kilometer wide at this spot. And over, what is it in terms of the depth right now is 335 meters. That's 1,099 feet deep, this lava lake. So it's the world's largest lava lake. And one of the things that happens is sometimes people look at this telemetry stuff and they say, oh, it's kind of quiet. And they say, oh, Madam Pele, she's going to sleep, her dance ending. And she turns around and does another jig and
she's like,
continues her dance.
I'm still here. I'm still dancing.
Over that 35-year period, there's a number of people that predicted, oh, this is the end of the eruption. And like, nope.
So the end is nigh.
I don't print it. So let's move on. Let's look at some pictures of actual stuff. Another thing as well, I want to talk about this page here. Again, these links will be in the description below. Talks about the current, this is the page where you talk about the current stuff happening. And it says, yes, the current lake right now it's risen 106 meters since the eruption began in December 29th, 2021. So since the end of September, it's risen 100 meters. The lake has gone up over 348 feet. It contains the amount of lava that's come out since the September 29th is 77 million cubic meters, or 20 billion gallons of lava that's come out since the end of September. So it's, and you look here, one of the things, so you'll see that I'll talk about there's lava there. Here's the current height of the lava lake. And just because there isn't lava right now, maybe something stops. That's because the plumbing could be clogged and it's ready to burst out again.
Yeah.
The thing to look at is, go ahead.
So it's like a calm before the storm. It's like,
yes,
if it ain't happening, it's kind of energy accumulating. So it's accumulating somewhere. We just want to figure out where it comes out in the end. Is it coming out from the main vent, or is it going to end up somewhere like that happened at the edge of the island where everything just like drained out and
Now
kind of punished the partygoers?
Question
sure.
Related to that in the chat. It says, are there definitive signs when a volcano is dead, or is it usually too ambiguous?
Well, the dead volcanoes are what they call extinct, are where it no longer has a magma chamber. Dormant is where it has a magma chamber, but that magma chamber is cooling. Active is where there's energy coming into the magma chamber and is expanding. So if it's a blob of a magma down there that is a process of cooling down and shrinking, it's considered to be dormant. And when it hardens over, it's considered to be extinct. When it's expanding and there's energy coming up, remember that hotspot keeps feeding Kilauea, it's considered to be active. So even though like Mauna Loa is not erupting right now, it's active and magmatic chamber is actually quite active and expanding, and it's got all kinds of earthquakes and so forth. So you look at earthquakes, you look at tilt. The other thing you look at in an active eruption is how much gas is coming out. So on this page, which is updated usually daily, unless there's a big event, and it has multiple updates, they'll talk about how much sulfur dioxide is coming out. And so right now it said on May 22nd, 2,300 tons of sulfur dioxide came out that day. And that gives you the idea about how much gas. Now, why is that important? Well, magma, well, you say lava below ground, or lava, which is with liquid rock on top. Well, you think of liquid, we tend to think about water. But magma is liquid rock, lava is liquid rock, and rocks are heavy. And a chunk of, it doesn't matter that it's liquid, a chunk of lava is as heavy as a boulder that size. It's really, 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 really heavy.
It's equivalent.
It's dense. It's dense. So yeah.
And even if
it's not water.
Foamy stuff on the top with a bunch of air mixed in, it still is rock. And rock, once to enter gravity, will sink. So why does magma come to the surface and why does lava come out on the top? It is because of dissolved gases. Inside the liquid magma are a number of gases that are under so much pressure as a liquid. And so one of the gases is out there is sulfur dioxide. There are also water is another constituent of it. Other gases can be, chlorine compounds and fluorine compounds. There's all kinds of various gases under there. And one of the things you do when you go to an event to study it is you sample what's the gases coming out, because that tells you what's boiling. What happens is that let's take sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide under pressure will turn into a liquid. So somewhere down in the magma column, as you get higher and higher pressure, the gas goes from sulfur dioxide goes from a gas to a liquid. At that spot, that's where you said that sulfur dioxide is boiling. When it boils, it's like fizzing. It's like a can of soda where the fizz lost up the cola, comes out the top of the bottle of the can. This is what happens. This is effectively a eruption.
And that changes with temperature, right? Like if you put a soda can inside a freezer, it's going to explode eventually once it gets cold enough. And so vice versa.
So it's where the gas boils, because as you go to the surface from down below, the pressure drops. The pressure is at air pressure at the surface. Right. Down deeper, because you got all this stuff crushing it, the pressure is higher. So who
remembers that formula in chemistry?
Because the gas at the top becomes liquid down below. And so when you sample gases coming out of a vent, what you're seeing is which gases are coming out to know where it's boiling. Because that boiling is what gives you the magma's loft to the point where it reaches the surface and becomes lava.
Is it that Galen-Six's law? Is that what it's called? The pressure temperature law?
Yeah. So in this case, when you look at stuff, you say it may not be apparent based upon how much lava is there. That may be hard to judge because you're going to see the surface, but you're better off looking at the amount of gas. And so sulfur dioxide is a common gas that comes out. And so this number at 2,300 is a reasonably vigorous eruption, right? At the beginning of the eruption, we saw things in the 20 to 3,000 tons range. When the previous eruption was kind of waning, we saw 100, 200 tons, and eventually it goes to zero, right? When this eruption ends, some point in the future, part of the ending will be that we no longer have lots of gas coming out of the cracks, right? It'll be the lava will have long since disappeared from the surface, hardened, but the gas will go down. So when you look at this page, look at how much gas is coming out, because that tells you about how vigorous it is. Here's another graph. This is called called tilt meters. This is a measurement of they basically have a bars there that measure the change in level. the mountain breathes. It expands and contracts, just like it has a breathing cycle. And I'm going to move this up to the middle here. This particular graph, you see the sort of shape of stuff. This is called a deflation-inflation event, where the line goes here and starts to drop down, levels out, and then it inverts and it jumps up and levels out. So this is the deflation. This is inflation. And you see over here's a longer period of time. Here you see these DI events going on. And what a deflation-inflation event is it represents a turnover of the magma chamber below. Why does it inflate? Why does it deflate? Well, again, using that soda can analogy, if you've shaken up a soda can, you pop the top off, you get all this foam coming out. The soda on the top becomes flat and stale. It no longer has that carbon dioxide gas in it. When the can was sealed, it was under pressure. That gas was liquid. When you open the can up, it fizzes, right? The liquid boils, it comes out, and the top of that can, that soda material becomes what we call stale. It loses its zest. Same thing with the magma. The magma, when it's near the surface to the point where the pressure drops and the material goes from liquid to gas, it boils, and you get the foam coming out, lava comes out on top. Well, now what happens is that magma that's sitting on the top loses its fizz, and it does what gravity goes, it sinks. And so that magma begins to sink down into what? Deeper magma under higher pressure. And what will happen is that it'll turn over. It'll literally will roll over, and the fresher magma on the top will come to the surface. What will happen? That magma will rise, the pressure will drop, it'll boil, and it will reinvigorate. So what you see for this deflation is the stale magma losing the fizz, and this is the new magma comes up and refizzes.
Is it like when for example, if you're dropping a corkscrew in a glass of water, isn't it? A cork, you can say, dropping in a glass of water. It goes down to the bottom and then gets rotated around, and there's displacement of liquid because of that, isn't it? So that's what's happening. That magma at the top solidifies, goes down, displaces liquid, and then that whole cycle is going there, isn't it?
And it doesn't quite solidify as much as it loses its foam. It doesn't have that lock.
Got it. Anything that's making it lighter, that was making it come up, has gone, right? So that gas
has escaped out of the vent.
That was making it lighter has gone. So whatever's left, the heavy liquid, it's gonna sink because of that, because it's not that light anymore. So
that's the D. This is the deflation of the material sinking, and it's sinking. What happens is it sinks, but the other material below then it displaces other material, and that deeper material under higher pressure comes up to the surface, reaches the boiling point, and then all of a sudden it starts refizzing. And so that's where you get the inflation. And so this part here over a day represents the magma chamber turning over, rolling over. And you see over this period of the past month, it's done it multiple times. The speed it rolls over tells you about the energy coming up. Because if there's nothing coming from the mantle and the upwelling would stop, then the magma chamber wouldn't roll over. It would fizz, it would stop, it would, and again, fizzing means there's no more lava coming to the surface. There's very little gas coming out, and kind of hardens and stops, and everything, and the eruption stops. But as long as you see these deflation and inflation events, and sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small, that means there's energy coming from much deeper in the earth, coming up into the magma chamber, and rolling over, and that rolling over, the new fizz causes new gas to come out, and of course, nice lava.
So it's kind of like, it's good that we are getting these inflations and deflations, right? It's like, this is a healthy release of energy from a volcano. It's like when it stops, these inflation and deflation stop over a long period of time, and you're just wondering what is happening. And that's what you did. You were like, okay, this thing stopped, I don't trust this, I'm out of here, because that energy will come out somewhere.
Yes, because
end up somewhere.
Even though the top hardened and there's no longer gas coming out and no longer lava coming out, we knew that there's still material coming up from the mantle. And the question is, well, now pressure builds up and it breaks open. Is it going to break open very violently? Is it going to have a crack with a slow release? Or is it going to go pop like a balloon, right? That's the thing you don't want to do.
Mick makes a good point and says, like, literally the lava lamps behind you, the rotation of, like, as it cools down, it comes back down. And
Yes. There you go. Exactly. That's exactly what's happening here for those little things of it turning. It's a chaotic system, so that's when you want to look at so we help teach Hawaiians how to look at these tilt meters. Now, one unit here, it represents 1 microradian. That is think of a 1 kilometer bar being lifted 1 millimeter. For those that are metrically challenged, think of like a bar maybe 2/3 of a mile long being lifted up by the thickness of 1 dime. This is a very tiny tilt, but enough to measure, and this is one of the key measurements there. There's another graph here.
Before we do that, real quick, just to give Landon a heads up, we are at the hour and 40-minute mark. So just so you know where we're at.
Yeah, we're going to get to the end of this telemetry because I want to teach people about how to read the signs, and then we'll do
I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know, just so you weren't caught off guard or anything.
And then we have this, we call volcano core. We want to see lava. We want to see, the red glowy stuff and what's happening currently. So, so we have the tilt meter, and the tilt meter near Howley Mountain Summit is going to talk about the mountain breathing. This, on the other hand, is a GPS unit measuring a distance across the caldera. Remember that we had the tilt meters are somewhere around here, and over here measuring the mountain expanding and contracting. But the GPS meters measure a distance from about here over to here. It really is as magma comes up, the top of the mountain expands and stretches. And that's what the GPS meter is showing you. There's an arbitrary distance, an arbitrary 0 point, and you see here's over a past year, here's over a past 5 years. And the reason why this 5-year graph is significant is that this big drop you see represents the end of that 35.5-year eruption, when all that magma went down the spine and out at the very east end of the Big Island and wiped out all those homes. That also created the case where the summit had a cavity and it fell in on itself. This contraction represents the top of the mountain contracting, and it contracted 2.5 meters over a distance of about 3 kilometers. So it was like the drum head had less pressure and it kind of sagged in on itself. But notice at the end of that eruption, where then the pit collapsed and the water formed, it immediately started growing again, and that's because there's still stuff coming up in the mantle. And it expanded. There's no coming out, no lava coming out. Oops. And all of a sudden we had that was the case where I was literally online with Red Eye and looking stuff, and I said, hey, I got to go because it started erupting again. And that was Landon's first Discord. Eruption. it boiled away the lava lake and stopped. And then it kept expanding again, and we said, it's going to do it again, and this is the second spot. So this is the second eruption. Good.
So it kind of is going back to that high point, isn't it?
Yes.
So slowly going back to that high point, and you're just wondering, again, is there another eruption that's going to come in maybe next 10, 15 years, if I'm not wrong? Because that's what it looks like over a 5-year period. That's what it's like, going up slowly, gradual.
I understand right now it's erupting right now, right? So we've been in an eruption since the end of September. The question is, how much can it go? And we know that there's enough pressure that got up to this height.
Yeah.
If there's the same amount of pressure, it will resume because one of the things we talked about is that at the end of that eruption, of the 35-year eruption, where the top of the island was like a drum truss, was so tight. What it did was it instead of it breaking open, it basically flushed down the pipes down the spine, went almost 35 kilometers down underground and came out to the end of the island. That's how the tension at the top of the mountain contributed to push that magma chamber, almost a cubic kilometer of magma,
It's like
down
someone
the
pushed
island.
a flush button.
Yeah. So one of the things that people are asking about is, let's go back to the map again at the summit and say, well, what's it going to do? Is it going to continue to rise? And is it going to continue to fill up this drop down block, get higher and higher and higher? Well, yes, but at some point, the pipes that sent it down this line are going to be available. Right now, most of this lava lake is below the level of the pipes that head, the lava tubes that head out this way.
Gotcha.
But at some point, when this thing gets high enough and begins to melt this rock, it might all of a sudden drain. Not because the lava, the eruption is ending, but because it's going to come out some other spot. And by the way, there's pipes going the other direction. There are pipes heading down this direction. This spot down here at the ocean, where the gray line meets the ocean, that's where all those earthquakes are sitting. And so the people that live around here want to know: is it possible that this material, which is up at an elevation of over 1,100 meters, might drain down this pipe and come out down here? Right? You've got almost a cubic kilometer of lava in this lake sitting up high, and if a crack opens and drains down the mountain, it's going to come out some spot, and that might be where you get the nice big eruptions of lava and the things flowing down the side. We don't know. So that's part of the thing that people looking at this stuff, trying to look at the things and trying to understand what's happening, right? So here's the current picture of Kilauea. This is the current Holly Mile Mountain. There's a live picture, and again, links in the description will be in the description showing you this live camera. It updates about every 10 minutes or so. So that's an update there. You got a nice vent here. Remember, this is the lava lake. This is lava. Remember, lava is
Don't step
warm.
into this lake. This is not for having a bath. No.
It's warm compared to the air. So when lava reaches the air, it tends to freeze and harden. So you see the crust of stuff there. But we have some technical things. When you look at the thermal area, this is the thermal image. So this is the same, a little bit larger scale. You can see there's the edge of the lava lake, and we see there's an active portion. Remember when we looked at the map, we saw this red spot. That's what's going on here. This is the current hole where it's on the surface, and you can see from the temperatures, we're looking at temperatures that are around approaching 600 degrees Celsius, right? Of material. That's to hot. The stuff over here, but the stuff over here, this blue, is like 100 to 150. This is water would boil sitting on this part of the surface. Right. So even though it's not as glowy as this stuff, it is hot, right? So sometimes during the day, what you see is this, right? If you come during the daytime, you'll end up with a view that's going to look sort of like this. The thing that's if you look at the stuff at night, and let me go and pick up an image here. Last night I grabbed some pictures of what it looked like.
Exclusive, guys.
And do I have that? It's
an exclusive showing of public information.
Is it
this
loaded
broadcast
on
has
here?
Been brought to you by
I'm looking here one moment. I'm looking at the spot here. Are there questions, by the way, while I'm looking for the...
Yeah, I got plenty of questions. One of them is, what's the inflation and deflation cycle on Pele at the moment and the current depth of the lake?
So current inflation deflation cycles tend to last around a day or so. when we look at stuff, if we go back to deformation here, yeah, these things tend to be sometimes to be a day, sometimes to be a half day. And you look in over the month, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here it's hard to tell whether it's deflation, inflation cycles. Sometimes there's noise, but you can get right now every couple of days we have a DI cycle that lasts for about a day. Current depth of the lava lake, and you can see that on the map, is going to be. Let me go back to here, there, maps. They have all kinds of. By the way, there's a nice thermal map here showing you what it looks like from satellite image and thermal stuff.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's
Cool.
there's that current lava blob with the current hole and the glowy bits. They have lots of maps, but the current map here, crater showing filling. The current depth of the lake is 335 meters, which is 1,099 feet. As of May 22nd. So a couple of days old. It gets, it's going up, and again, sometimes it drains back, sometimes it goes up, it kind of goes back and forth. But the general trend you see from when the eruption started in at the end of last September, the lava lake was at 229 meters. So it is gone up over 100 meters in height.
Wow.
Yeah.
Over a kilometer side, and that represents the amount, the volume of the lake.
Lava
right
tide
now.
goes in, lava tide goes out. You can't explain that.
Sure. It currently is, the lava volume currently is of the lake is 20.3 billion gallons.
Oh my
Or
god.
76.8 million cubic meters.
Now that is a mega pint.
that's a few megapints. So the maps will give you sort of statistics of that sort of thing. But that's a good question. So when you look at this stuff, you're looking at something that's over a kilometer wide, over 1,000 feet.
That looks like a boss battle
meters
area.
deep.
That looks like I'm fighting a lava snake or a big roly-poly boy in my video game.
Yes. Yes. And so
Dark Souls boss just rises out of the ground.
And so I'm looking at so for example, let's see, I'm trying to get it to my set. Unfortunately, it's on the other thing. Can you briefly switch to non-camera mode? I mean, non-display mode, and I'll show you a couple of pictures.
I got you.
Oh wow, they'll look great.
So here's a photo. Again, this is from the same site last night. There's of the lava, and so when you go there at night, you'll see stuff like this.
Wow.
You'll see, and this is the crack of the lava moving. Right. Notice these sets here that. And I'm sorry. Is that okay?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These spots here are where it's crusted over, but you'll see the flow coming this way and the cracks, and you watch it, going in real time. When that was a thermal image there. That's what it looks like visually. The visual camera. The visual camera right now at night tends to be overexposed because it's so bright.
This is like this looks like a gateway to hell or something.
Landon, could you, of the first one you showed, do you mind sending me a Discord image of that? And I will put it in the description for people to go and look at from a large point. And you can set it as your desktop background if you wanted.
Yeah. So let me start to sending those images forward to the set here. Anyway, back to this spot here. So we go back to the desk steering.
Oh, yep.
And I'm going to do I have to turn on the airdrop. Okay, so now I'm going to send to the computer these images. So, but I say, the reason why this camera at night just shows blinding glow because it's so bright. In the daytime, it's less so. This is the thermal area, giving an idea about it. So if you look at, here is a current live picture. Let's well, that was of a couple of months ago. These things all update about every 10 minutes or so. Gotta remember, okay, there's a change, right? And
wow,
you see it's kind of coming out here, this spot. This is that general shape of thing. When we came back to the thermal, right? This is looking the other direction. We see that material going forward. So this is the current, current material that just came to the surface and hasn't yet hardened. This stuff here is lava, but it's now, got a big crust on it. So that's why when you look at this at night, this time up here shows you the Hawaiian time. So that's what the camera is geared towards. So are going to show up, you see it at night. So daytime and nighttime images will give you different aspects of it. Here's another case. Here's a larger scale image of seeing the pit. So from the edge, giving you a sort of bigger vantage point. Here you see, here's Gilligan's Island. Look at that. Look at that raft, right? Let me sort of zoom in on that thing. There's Gilligan's Island saying that this crazy rock. Remember, this is this lake, 335 meters over 1,100 feet, almost 1,100 feet deep, of lava with this Gilligan's Island raft sitting here. Here's another island here. These rock rafts floating around inside this lava lake. It's kind of, it's puzzling.
Yeah,
but
they be just chilling in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I look forward to the day of standing on that island, right? Right now, part of the problem is that there's not as much air down here. This is full of all kind of volcanic gases. There's sulfur dioxide, there's carbon dioxide. Also from the ocean, the chlorine and fluorine compounds from the ocean, water gets put into here. Those gases gets broken up by the high heat, and the result is you have fluorine and chlorine gases down here. So when we watch some poor bird coming down and getting curious, it flies on there and goes.
It's like
So it is not safe to go down here unless you have your special breeding apparatus. There are cameras all around here we've now established. Because Pele is not.
I'm going to ask a question, Landon. You wear a full face respirator?
Oh yes.
You wear a full face. Yeah. So it's fitted for you, is it? And that's why you're always clean shaven.
Oh, yes.
He's always got to be ready to get up and fly to a volcano. Gets up every morning.
That's one of the requirements. If you want to have a full face respirator, you gotta be clean shaven. Yeah. You can't because if you have like facial hair, it won't fit you. And then there's this there can be an opening where the gases can get in, and that's not good. Nah.
Yeah.
But is it you wear it with a full bodysuit, isn't it? When you approach that area, isn't it? Or
yes, you have. It's a mask. It's shield. You need to shield your eyes, and then if you're near a spot where you're actually dealing with lava, you also need to have a heat suit in case stuff splashes on you and you try to not die. So
it's kind of all in one piece, is it?
Yeah. So I'll send you this image. But can you see this image now on the screen share?
Yep.
Yeah. So those are that's the stuff I saw at night. So you can see at night it's a different view than the daytime. But yes, for the set. So I do actually have here. Before I go to the spot, I want to point out there is a web page of cameras. We now have lots and lots of cameras. You can click on. So you look on this stuff and you look and say, what is this thing? What is the thing here? And it'll say this is at Mauna Loa. This is up near the air monitor. So the top of Mauna Loa, and you see Mauna Kea off in the distance. You see camera stuff.
Very cool.
Live camera stuff. You can look at things over towards the North Rift Zone, the observation tower. This is where you can go and look down into the pit. And sometimes it's rainy. Sometimes it's sunny there. You can look down here. It talks about so it talks about the spot, and then you can click on visit web camera down here and see a live picture. and temperatures.
I'll
and
make
kinds of
sure
good
that
stuff.
that link gets put into the description for anybody who wants to check that out.
So check out some of the live stuff. And again, as I mentioned, I showed you some pictures of what it looks very different at night than daytime for that. With regards to Kilauea itself, I want to show you a couple. You're asking because Maanyaa was asking about what does it look like. What do you do when you're near lava? So here I am. I'm doing a sample of lava. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so now you can't say what it is. You can't see it exactly because I'm putting a asbestos glove thing in front of my face because the heat is so intense. It's like staring at a blast furnace, or if you ever looked at an active kiln operating and the door opens, you get that blast of heat coming out. It is extraordinary. It's the amount of but now I have was kind of like one of those sort of racing suits, and it is basically this insulation stuff here. Now understand,
is that
this is in the middle of tropics.
Did you say that's an asbestos glove? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Asbestos, okay, but like
welding like glove things that the material, because that is the really good fibers. It's sealed into a unit, right? So you're not getting asbestos fibers, but asbestos is one of the really good insulators, and even though quote you can't get them anymore, people who work with very hot stuff say you can't beat this thing. So what it is it's material that's sealed in. It's hermetically sealed inside. They give you that insulation layer.
So it's like it's not getting disturbed. So it's
you have a suit that's sort of like like car racers use with overalls on the top of it. But understand is that this is in the middle of the tropics. The humidity is very high. It is very warm, and the last thing you want to do is put on a suit and suit up fully. You are drenching in sweat inside the thing, and then you approach this really hot stuff called lava. This was the CURT 2013, by the way, and also talk about the nature of lava. So this is liquid rock, and what we use is like a tire iron. Where you go in, you grab you all your might, you basically bury it into the lava. You pull it out. You don't dribble on your shoes, and you turn around. And you put it in a bucket. Where
everything about this makes me think of like honey. Like you're just going into the comb and just being like.
And so it freezes here, and that's when you take the material back to the lab and analyze it, because it will shock freeze off of the iron, and because you don't want to leave the iron in too long because the iron will start melting. Right. But you want to get the lava over to here, where it then gets cataloged and cooled. It takes out back to the lab where they analyze it that day, and the next day they throw it back. And so if you're a volunteer, you get a backpack full of rock where you go back and you throw it back into the spot, because there are Hawaiians that don't want you to be stealing Pele's children, because she gets mad, and if she gets mad, their village gets wiped out, and they get.
It's no bueno.
Yeah. So
do you use a special chemical to shock freeze it?
Time out. I'm switching us over because we are at the 2-hour mark. I'm switching us. All right. We do need to wrap it up. So go, Maanyaa, but we gotta wrap in.
Okay. So do you use any special chemical to shock freeze it, or is it just water?
Just water.
You can't have water.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Could I quickly go through just a couple of last minute images to show you some of my best spots? Here's down in the lava lake, where I had a little bathtub ring. Here's some splatter stuff I took from got near there. Here's one of the vents, pool vents on the side, throwing stuff up on the top.
Wow.
This was a fissure. Remember when one of the fissures broke open and lava. Again, these are giant rocks, even though liquid, fling up the tops of the trees and going back down. So what you don't get is a sound. Imagine this giant throwing giant boulders up into the air and crashing down. The bang, 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 bang. Lots of good wiggly stuff. This is the other side where you see it's because it's so wet. These trees aren't catching on fire immediately, but eventually they succumb to the heat and wither away.
Wow.
And there's another
Holy
vents. That's one of the
guacamole.
lava-like vents there. So that's a couple of stuff. And finally, here's another guy here, and then finally here's a picture at this was a case where there's a typhoon, and a lightning bolt lit up the sky, and Pele is glow is down here in the bottom. So basically, Pele did the flashbulb, or the storm did the flashbulb, and Pele had the glow. So basically, a simultaneous lightning flash to this is at dead of night. This is around midnight.
That was her and her boyfriend hooking up.
Yeah, and so they had a good time. So again, you can come here to the edge at Volcano National Park and look over and watch. No guarantee she's going to be doing it tomorrow, but hey,
go check it out.
Last minute questions.
Awesome.
Last minute questions are, if you had any, put them in the comment section. Somebody asked, I think Bent Hovind asked if it's true that copper is not found in magma and lava.
It is not often found in these cases. You can find it, but tends to be in trace amounts. There are places where copper is, and it kind of depends upon the material. A lot of the continental material has copper in it, and so volcanoes like Mount Rainier or Mount St. Helens are mostly continental material being reheated, and so you can get copper there. Whereas in the places like in the ocean along those tectonic plates, they tend to be less copper.
Yeah, there you go. We got to get out of here, so go check out Landon's Discord. Landon, if you would like to leave a link to the Discord, either in the comment section or in the live chat, that would be fantastic, because I know people were asking about it.
Yeah.
So I go to the live chat. Can I send you? How can I send you that section right now? Because I had been on Discord.
If you have that section open, you should be able to right click on that section, and it should just send it. Maanyaa, what do you got going on in the meantime? Anything in particular?
Me?
Yeah.
I am just looking forward to the Johnny Depp trial. So I'll be looking into that. I'm just like, I think so. They are supposed to deliver a verdict by tomorrow, if I'm not wrong. I hope they don't go into the.
Well, no, they're not supposed to be.
Week.
I thought they weren't supposed to be deliberating during the weekend.
Yeah, they're not. So I don't know whether is the verdict coming next. So yeah, the anticipation. Holy guacamole! Go and watch the closing arguments, the rebuttals, in how Elaine is apparently time blind. They have time blindness. But I don't know. Lawyers are supposed to be good at it, but it was kind of sad and tragic. But the saving grace for Amber Heard was Rittenhouse.
All right, don't get too much into it. We gotta go.
Okay, sorry.
So one question. So if Josh, if I put into our vMix chat there a link, that link is good for the next 7 days. Do you see that up here?
In the vMix chat?
Oh yeah, I saw the link.
Where? In Discord or in vMix?
In the vMix chat, I can see it.
I don't even know where that is.
You click on the little bubble thing.
I'll copy it. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
If you paste that link into the chat, so go in and that's the invite that'll good for the next 7 days. If you go to invite, then I'll add you to the science set, and there's science stuff. I will post pictures of volcano. I would say volcano porn, science stuff, all kinds of good things there. So enjoy. Please like and subscribe, and become a patron of these good folk.
Consider joining and helping us keep this doing. If you have anything that you want to cover or want to talk about or want to come on to talk about or want to come on to debate or discuss, such as here, or you have a presentation like Landon had, I'm more than happy to host you. Let me know.
Yeah.
I will catch you guys in less than 30 minutes.
So set the invite in a couple of days, a day or so. I'll add you to the links. Thank you very much. Enjoy and hi.
Thanks, Landon. Thanks, Josh. Bye, everyone.